Okay, I'm going to record this session so that at least the conversation is recorded. There are some more experts here. There are people here with an interest in the topic. It's fairly diverse group today. Even I am not quite sure who everyone is here, so I'm also it's an adventure for me. I'm just going to. I think I put. Let's start. I'll give a brief introduction on where this initiative comes from. And then it's more of a round table where everyone can talk a little bit and we see what happens. I will share my desktop. Let me just make sure that I am recording. Okay, I am recording. Okay, can everyone see what's on my desktop? I think so. Great. Someone else is entering the room. Basically, this is there's 12 Summanity Transition Talks this year. And we do it so that there's a cycle of, we start from the ground up, which is health, atmosphere, a mind, let's say truth and lies. We've had 3 already this year. They're posted on the YouTube channel. You can see on summanity.com what some of these discussions. And this year, now we're at a cycle where we look at the idea of, okay, what is the basis for building a home of the future or development? That is land. Where are you going to put your home or your society? Water, basic energy. We will go to construction, producing, agriculture later, investing, and then we go more and more to civilizational aspects or organizational aspects. So there's a cycle this year, and for us, the goal is to over time, build a network of people who can help each other, experts, people interested in this, and people who want to help each other with transitions and have interesting innovations in these areas. A little bit of context, what we're building with Humanity Solutions is fairly complex. So this little image helps us to explain it, what we do and how we do it. Humanity Solutions is an organization based in the Netherlands. We are initiating and launching different initiatives that can help others to build solutions for humanity and can help others to shape collaborations around it. And Summanity is one of the things, and we're helping organizations to learn what can work, what doesn't work, etc. And building websites is one way of going about that. But you can see more information on humanitysolutions.net. One of the things we're also doing is building networks and communities around large transitions, big challenges we're facing. One is climate change. What does this entail? Unpredictable water, maybe more flooding, but also drought, etc. So water is one of the elements that we're talking about in these transition talks. And foresight transitions is more the part of Humanity Solutions that can help corporations or that can find interesting technology linked with these big challenges. And underneath foresight transitions, there is what are the properties you should maybe invest in or buy for a safer or more future or with more opportunities? What are the policies that could be interesting towards the future? And who are the influencers to follow or the role models or potential partners if you want to be better positioned for the future? And underneath that, there's a larger number of, we've launched more than 30 websites. In the meantime, we're looking at some real estate to acquire maybe, and we're helping some startups to grow. So that's also happening at the same time. So that's that. And today we'll have one look also at, okay, we have these flood risks, but what does it mean for maybe what kind of home do we purchase? Do we adjust our home? Do we purchase another home away from rivers or coastlines? What does that mean? So that's one of the questions we will look at later. And one of the things we will look to see if we can build something together on top of that. We're going to do it a little bit differently than normal. We're going to just do a first session where we do a quick round where everyone can talk 1 or 2 minutes about problems you see, either root causes or problems in relation to managing coastal areas, flood risks, anything in this area where you see, okay, there is climate change happening, there is things are changing around water sometimes, and mainly about the question where and how is there too much water, but looking at the problems first. And then afterwards, Esther will moderate a small section on what are the solutions and what can you do? Which habits can you take on? Which properties could you acquire? Which policies may be useful? Which partners could be useful? Do you have innovations or solutions that could be relevant? And at the end, we'll see whether we can do something together with Foresight Properties if there's time left. Okay, is that good? Then I'm very curious what this conversation will bring. So I am just going to look at from the top down. I think there's a little bit less people. So if you want to take a bit more time to clarify what is the problem you see or what are the trends you see, let's start with that. We just do a round, and if you want to talk about it, go ahead. If you have nothing to say about it, also fine. All right. Can maybe Annemarie can start with sharing some of her views on the trends and the problems you see.
Yes, that is fine. Should I also introduce myself a bit?
Yeah, it's nice if you say where you are and where you're situated. Yeah.
Yes. My name is Annemarie. I'm a researcher at the Delft University of Technology in the Civil Engineering Department. And I'm working with water management and mainly drinking water. So it is water, not necessarily flooding, but most of my work takes place in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is a country very prone to flooding. It floods twice a year, and the floodings are getting worse every year. My background is industrial design engineering, so I'm a designer / engineer, and currently I'm working on designing and I'm working together with a programmer on designing and programming an app for water supply, and part of that app would also be flood warnings incorporated so that people can take appropriate action, and the strategy mostly applied is just and go away from the area where the flooding is taking place. So leave your home, grab your things, and get out. It's quite effective because not many people are killed during the floodings nowadays. So the problems that I would see from the perspective of drinking water is that I'm mainly working on piped water supply, and that is also washed away during floodings. So the whole infrastructure is attacked. I think most people get away in time. In Bangladesh, for sure, there's quite a good warning system. But then you have to rebuild not only the homes, but also the infrastructure, the water supply. I would see that as the biggest problem. What it also brings in Bangladesh, all the floodings, is very fertile soil. People come back and they grow many crops, and that would be something which they would stay for at the place and not run away or move somewhere else. So it's their source of income, their living. So I don't see people moving, but that is only from the Bangladesh perspective. So
yeah, but if in short, if we're going to talk first in a round about the problem, or do you see what, like in terms, the problem is that you see is the infrastructure is always kind of destroyed. That's one of the problems you're looking at.
Yes, electricity also. Well, I'm mainly in drinking water, so I see people, the water getting contaminated, and the groundwater also getting affected, especially in the coastal areas. All the salts are going into the groundwater, and that makes the water, well, undrinkable. And then you have to rebuild, you have to purify your water, and that takes time, effort, a lot of money, which people often don't have.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Okay. Who else wants to share like their views on the problems you see that either are the cause of flooding or that are created by flooding, like both? Like who maybe there is a thing there like that is called iPhone JK. I'm not quite sure who's behind iPhone JK, but maybe you can share something. Who is iPhone JK? Maybe you don't know. You are iPhone JK. Maybe Masaryka Arnold can enlighten us then first.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. There's a bit of an echo.
Yes, maybe a simple introduction.
Yeah.
My name is Masaryka Arnold. I'm in Uganda, currently in northern Uganda.
Yeah.
I'm a student of a Bachelor of Science in Biosystems Engineering at Gulu University.
Okay.
And one of our core objectives of the course is water resource management. I'm one of the people who are born from a flood-prone district. I come from a district that is in the mountains of Mount Rwenzori in western Uganda. That is Kasese district. We have been suffering floods for quite long. The recent was last year in May. And I was there actually when it was occurring. I think the major cause of floods in my district especially, it occurs on one river majorly, River Nyamwamba. It is that that brings the highest flood. And one of the major causes is the melting snow on Mount Rwenzori. The rate of snow melting has greatly increased due to global warming. So there is still a great challenge to overcome this snow melting. Measures are being taken to control this. People have planted trees. There is distilting taking place, but still, after every 1 year, the flood comes back. The return period is always 1 year. So there is still that challenge. After 1 year, the flood comes. Scientists have done their best, but the root cause of the flood is not yet known, despite some theories that have come in, but the root cause of the flood is not yet established. So scientists are trying to see what can be done, but the people in the community are also trying. However, the main reason why the damage of this flood is still too much is that the river valley has been occupied by the community due to increased population. The river valley was 30 meters wide, but right now it's about 10 meters. So when the water increases in the channel, it obviously affects the people living in that area, which is quite a very big challenge to the government. These people have not been taken to another place So they are encroaching the river valley. Basically, that's what I can say about flooding in Uganda here.
Okay, thanks. And is it also the case on your end that the floods are also bringing more fertile soils, and that so they're also bring good effects, or not so much?
The good effects are very little. The only good thing that they have brought maybe is the sand and gravel, which people have actually excavated to get something to live. But I think the disadvantage is too much. The disadvantage can be like 80%. So
Yeah.
it has done more harm than good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's interesting. We have some sea flooding. Bangladesh is mainly coastal flooding, I'm assuming, and this is more river.
Yeah, the main cause in Bangladesh is also the rivers. The coastal areas suffer from the sea, but the rivers in Bangladesh all come together. It's a delta area, so it comes from all the countries around, from the Himalaya, from Myanmar, and they have no control over the rivers because Bangladesh is surrounded by India. So if India has shortage of water, they block the rivers and Bangladesh dries out. And if India has too much water from the snow melting from the Himalaya, then they open the gates and Bangladesh is flooded. So it's also a political issue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm impolite a little bit. I'm also taking some notes, but I'm maybe I shouldn't. I'll stop with that. Ochen, do you want to add your views on the problems, the root causes of flooding that you see?
Yes, please. Basically, a brief introduction.
Yeah.
I'm called Ochen Zedekia Ezra Ojok. I'm in Gulu, in northern Uganda, and I'm a student of biosystems engineering, Gulu University, and my specialty is hydrology. Basically, about floods in Uganda, Uganda mostly is having very many rivers, and River Nile cuts across right from the south up to the north and through to Egypt. And it has distributaries and tributaries. Some of the distributaries, like River Aswa, which is in the north, it is always flooding because of some of the activities that the people around do, like cutting the trees, cutting the trees which increases the erosion rate, where the water from the floodplain can easily flow into the river and then back outside to disturb the people around. Then in Uganda, we had a legislation which provided for the floodplain to be left alone in case of any flash flooding. It will not be disturbing very many people. Like, it was supposed to be 30 meters from the river, at least. That's where the economic activities would be starting from. Maybe agriculture, settlement, and the other things. But currently, because the land around the rivers are very productive, most people have chosen to live around there and carry out the agriculture. And they're doing a lot of harm to the river, which in turn hurts them. And then there are some activities also, some designers, some engineers, I can say. They design some bridges, they don't cater for the rivers. They don't cater for the flow of the rivers, and they don't provide for the floods. So they end up constricting the river. And thereby, the water can easily outflow from the river and it is causing displacement in many places. That's basically what I have about the discussion for today.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ochen. There is also with Humanity Solutions, we are looking at maybe starting to build from a land in Gulu, and like both of you from the north of Uganda, maybe you can also help with preparing that or developing it somehow. So that's something that maybe we can also get in touch with you if you're interested.
Yeah, currently I'm doing a project in flood risk analysis of one of the rivers. Okay. So I'm sure I will be providing more information to the government to help the locals of the area.
Yeah, interesting. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, how are you?
We're good. We are busy talking about what the problems are in related to flooding, coastal areas, rivers, water risks. And so we're doing a first round where everyone shares root causes they see of flooding or problems, related problems when there's flooding happening. What do you see in Mombasa? What can you share about these problems, root causes? Afterwards, we're going to look at solutions and relevant innovations.
Okay. My name is Matthew Egesa. I'm calling in from Mombasa, Kenya. It's at the Kenyan coast. For flooding, I'd say, at least for our experience in Mombasa, we have, I don't know whether I'll say flash floods, but mostly they are caused by a drainage problem at the coast. And it normally comes when there is rain or some lots of, not even lots, even just quite some little bit of rain in Mombasa, Kenya. And the roads get flooded if you look at the media, but it'll flood for just a short while because the area has sand and the water keeps seeping into the sand for quite a bit. So it'll cause flooding, but after a while, the flooding is mostly on the roads. They get flooded, but for me, I see the cause for our case is mostly poor drainage, or the drainage also gets, when there is no rain, either litter or dirt and maybe sand and soil gets swamped up on the drainage, causing some clogging. So if it's not removed in time, because we don't have frequent rain at the coast, so that's it.
Okay. And is there any talk in Mombasa about longer term climate change effects or rising seas, or is that already a topic or not so much?
Maybe it is. I may not be in that space at the moment, because at least I joined in to get a feel of how maybe other experts or other experiences from other areas, because I've been mostly on the ICT space.
Yeah.
But there could be talks. I'm not so sure, but I guess since it's quite some perennial problem, so I guess either quite a number of stakeholders in the space, or whether county government, or they could be having some longer term. But I may not say with certainty that there is.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'm trying to go down the next names. I'm working with an Apple today, which is new for me. Yannick, do you want to share your views on trends, problems, root causes in this context?
So I'm Yannick. I'm calling in from Amsterdam, where I live, and I'm a student in public governance and in tax economics. And so this is all very new to me. I've only just started public governance and then talking about sort of bigger issues, which was not talks about often in university, for example. So I'm here mainly to listen, to be honest, and to get some new ideas of flooding. So we, in the course, we just started up talking about this, and we also talked about, so of course, due to like the climate change and sea level is rising, and then we also talked about the sort of the gain that some countries have with a bit of climate change, and I think mainly that is for me very interesting, also from an economical point of view, that some climate change can actually benefit countries, especially in the short term, and also bigger countries on the northern parts of the world, so more like Russia. And so I think that's especially interesting, that not everybody loses from climate change in the short haul. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, Stepanovic, I think he wrote that he wrote in the chat what he's interested in. I'm just gonna give him a chance. Stepanovic, if you want to say anything about the trends or the problem or the root causes you're a bit more interested in or by, or that you know something about, you feel free to share something, but I will also let you pass the baton if you don't want to. I'm giving you, I think not now. Who is behind iPhone JK? I am not sure who behind iPhone JK is.
Sorry, that's me. I was busy with something.
All right.
It's Javeria. Yeah, so I am based in Karachi, Pakistan right now.
Yeah.
And I would say, as Yannick said, this is pretty new to me as well. I mostly work in peace building and conflict resolution, though I'm very interested in the environmental tensions of peace building and conflict. So I'd say, going off what I think Matthew was saying, I'm not sure if I'm right, if it was Matthew, I think a lot of the flooding that happens in Karachi is urban flooding. So you see monsoon rains that are very common in South Asia at large happening at not the regular times, or if they happen, they don't happen too, if they happen too much, otherwise they don't happen. So I think that system in itself is disrupting a lot of the region at large. So I think that would be one reason. Second, just a terrible infrastructure. Sewage system is terrible. I think it was last year when the rains were so heavy that the whole city had to shut down, and the city caters to around 200 million. So just having bad infrastructure in itself can impact so many people. But I'm pretty new to this. I'm going to start working with WWF, so I'm super excited to be learning from all of you. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Okay. I think because you're working on peace and maybe more social relations, and there's also power imbalances that some people are much more affected by flooding, of course, than people with more.
Absolutely.
So that's also something that you see. Or is inequality also partially a root cause by who is affected and who not? Or
yeah, of course, absolutely. Right now, you see a lot of encroachment drives in Karachi, where a lot of the people, and especially minorities or people who come from working class, they live in very sort of I guess just scattered settlements. And those are the people who are being encroached on because they live close to these specific systems that I don't know how to translate in English. But of course, those people are the most impacted because the living situation is very different. Or if you're trying to rebuild, quote unquote, the city, you're trying to only encroach on these scattered settlements rather than like these big houses that are very much part of the bigger issue here. But we also have land like water mafia in Karachi. So you actually have to pay for the water. And it's not that we don't have enough water for the whole city, but it's just that a lot of the mafias have taken control of the water systems. And again, it's just the mafia. So I don't know what more to say to that. So of course, I think inequality is a huge part of it within Karachi, but also just Pakistan at large, and like who is impacted by climate, how. and are there local cultures and local indigenous people impacted differently than people who live in the urban spaces? Yeah, so there's definitely a lot to do in terms of social dynamics, inequality, peace building, and how climate change impacts different people differently.
Yeah. Esther Aguero, does either of you want to add something on problems you see or root causes you see?
I would. I live in Kampala. My name is Esther. Kampala. Okay, Uganda is one giant floodplain. We have rivers, lakes, swamps everywhere. The country is tilted northwards, so essentially everything flows from the south to the north. The biggest problem we have in central Uganda is the fact that it collects water. And we have chosen to settle there mostly because, one, we grew up there and our ancestors settled there where they found fertile soil, because where there is flooding, there's most likely going to be fertile soil. And we have taken advantage of that. But in the building of the cities, no one took care to think of the drainage systems or to think of how are we going to deal with the flooding, probably because of the change in climate here and there. The rainy seasons are now really rainy, the dry seasons are really dry, and it leaves us in a place of we are getting more than we bargained for. We love rain, it helps us with our crops, we grow them and harvest in the dry season and take care of that stuff. But when it rains, it pours, and people are there's flooding. The biggest problem is we settled where we weren't supposed to settle, and moving people is it's genuinely not an option in Kampala. You're not going to someone to move out of the city. So I think a way we could look at it would be, how can we help them adapt? Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Can you maybe clarify why? Just once in a while asking the stupid questions, but why moving people is so difficult according to you? What are the underlying problems there?
Kampala is a city center. Essentially, it's where people go when they want to. It's like the New York of the States. When people make it big in any way, business-wise, relationships, friendships, most people go to the central. Probably building a community elsewhere, maybe in like west or north, probably north. North could work because that's the place where people are. Like Gulu is coming up as a city. It was awarded a city status. Mbale also, and also Mbarara. Those are the cities in other places. You could probably convince people to move there. However, because of the cultural diversity, Uganda is a very big place. In the north, most people they come from the different clans. How do I explain that? Their language is completely different from the ones in the center. And the people in the center have a very completely different language from the ones in the west, and same goes for the east. So essentially, uprooting people, you are uprooting someone's whole culture and putting them in a very strange land.
Yeah. Okay. I think maybe I also, what I find interesting, I'm a Belgian person, but I live in the Netherlands now, and the Netherlands have built enormous works to defend themselves against the sea or gain land, so it's quite impressive. But at the same time, now with climate change or rising sea, what fascinates me is that it seems to go, so the projections of the rising sea with climate change go very slowly. So it's a little bit over the next 20 years, a little bit more over the next 40 years, but then it starts to go, it's more of an exponential curve. So I'm a little bit, for me, it's also a question about timing. Like, just the problem, I think, is that that people can't really predict when it comes. Not on the river, but also not in the sea rise or it still seems, people are working on predicting this, but there's not so much awareness about it, or it's still not so clear to me, like if you buy a house at the coastline of the Netherlands in 10 years, when the value will start decreasing or when it'll get scary, like whether this is in 20 years or in 100 years. I feel there's not so much discussion about that. It's also as if one of the problems I see is maybe there's some denial of the problem also somehow. People, that's something I see happening. Okay, Esther, I'm gonna hand the mic over to you, and maybe you can have a look more at solutions or moderate in a way that you seem fit.
Maybe could I, before she jumps in, I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I hadn't read the brief really well about the talk today, but I think while I've been hearing now the rounds and rounds of contribution towards the topic, I've just recollected, I think the rising seas because when I came in, there was a bit about flooding, and what came top of my mind was the flooding in Mombasa. But if we talk about Kenya in general, in the recent past, over the media, we've had the problem of flooding in the rivers, especially in Western Kenya. The rivers draining to a lake, that is Lake Victoria, that is bordering Kenya and Uganda too. So that is one. And two, we have quite a number of lakes in the Kenya's Rift Valley. But in the recent past, they have really overflown their banks because now the rising seas, in as much as it's not on the ocean, the inland lakes have quite a number of even houses that were there are now submerged. There is a national park, like Nakuru National Park. The whole gate that was leading to the park in Nakuru, if you look at maybe the Kenyan media, if you Google search, you'll be able to see the gates that are submerged, quite a number of schools that were closed by the rivers. So I think it has happened, and not only just like Nakuru, quite a number of the lakes. The Rift Valley of Kenya has quite a number of lakes along it. So a number of them have really broken the banks, and they've covered quite a number of the homesteads and schools, other amenities that were nearby. So that is a problem. And at the moment, I don't know how. I haven't really delved much into knowing how it is, the solutions that are being offered. Definitely, it's the very short-term ones that have been made so far. Quite a number of schools, people maybe moving to higher grounds, and so that is a current challenge. But there is a perennial one, the one I was talking about, the rivers in Western Kenya, where during the rainy season, on the upper sides of the highlands where it rains, on the lower side closer to the lake, the people normally the rivers they flood and they cover homes and they get submerged. But you could wonder why mostly year in, year out, they normally don't move, even when it starts coming. So I think, I don't know if it could be cultural. Maybe they are seeing they're losing part of their land or something. That could be one on top of my head. But another reason maybe why they're not moving, it could be maybe a begging mentality. So during such calamities, they normally receive aid and maybe food portions, beddings, and things like that. So I don't know if that could be a motivation for some of them to stay by, because a good number of them are living maybe below the poverty line, or they're quite from humble backgrounds. So that could be another reason. But there is a specific constituency within the Western Kenya that they built. One of the politicians, through either the connections of government, they tried a long-term bit that stopped the perennial floodings for quite some time. They built some dikes along the banks of the river, which in my opinion, solved that for quite some time. But when the politician came out of, or he was voted out after a while, somehow, I don't know whether the dikes were done away with or the problem kept popping up in other years. So I don't know if it was a long-term problem, but I may not be very authoritative in exactly what may have gone wrong in that. So those could be some pointers from.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. But okay, let's go, Esther. Let's have a look at some solutions that could be helpful, habits, whatever, investments. Are you here? Yeah.
Again, my name is Esther. Will and Gero, Humanity Solutions. We have finished the first session and we have discussed quite an amount. So next we will be looking at solutions. We've all given problems. And let me just go through what we have so far. Anne-Marie talked about a lot, but she, I think, put it down to good warning system, a lack of a good warning system. Arnold put it down to the population increase, the river being narrow, and the fact that people are encroaching on the river valley. Ochen talked about cutting down trees and the fact that it increases the erosion range. Then Matthew talked about it being a drainage problem. Same with me. And Wilfried put it down to people can't really predict when or where the floods will come down. So we can take 5 minutes, I think, where we can think deeply along the lines of what we have discussed as problems, and we will be able to discuss this properly. Put your answers in the chat, and whoever feels like they have something to share, please do. Anne-Marie, I believe your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry, just to interrupt. You said that a lack of warning system, but in Bangladesh, the warning system is functioning properly. It can always be improved, but people get out of the areas in time. So the main issue I raised was the problems with infrastructure after return to the land. So that was just to add to that. Sorry.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, so 5 minutes. Everyone take some time and just put whatever you can in the chat, and we'll get into that after.
Solutions can be new habits, things you can buy, partnerships, innovations, policies, different fields.
Okay, it's been a bit over 5 minutes, and there's a lot in the chat. Who would like to start with their solution? I think I'm going to go straight to the chat and pick. So the very, very first answer or solution came from Anne-Marie.
Yes. I just shared some ideas that TU Delft is working on, like the floating homes in the Philippines. Infrastructure might be a bit difficult there, but it's a solution, and the floating homes. And later on, I also shared like building on hills or higher areas, or constructing higher areas where you can stay safe. And the early flood warning system, that is what TU Delft is working on, and also IHE, the Water Institute in Delft. And you came back to that with an algorithm. That would be indeed a great connection. And Other also shared that they are working on such an algorithm, or I try to keep up, but many things are coming. And then again, in Bangladesh, the main issue is political, well, climate change and political, that India is guarding the rivers. And I think in the Netherlands, we have a similar problem, that all the pollution comes in from other countries and from our country, but the rivers flow through the Netherlands and then end up in the sea. And we are responsible for cleaning any mess that is added to the water, and keep the water within limits. But we don't have the flooding problem that much. What I didn't, well, I said raising the dikes. That is what is happening in the Netherlands right now. So I was born and raised in an area 7 meters below sea level, pretty much beyond the dike. So if you live there, you see things happening. You see the dikes being raised, and people, that feels quite threatening, what's happening there. But I do agree with Wilfried that there's not a lot of communication about that the dikes are being raised by meters, and it's just happening a bit in the background. So only when you live there, you see it happen. So yeah. I think that's all that I shared.
Thank you. Do you think that having more people know about the raising of the dikes could be of any help?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because had the whole climate change discussion, there are a lot of people who do not believe in climate change. So why do we raise our dikes? I think that gives the signal that actually something is happening, and that the sea level is rising, and that the country is threatened by that. So I do think that this kind of communication will help. On the other hand, it can also scare people off. Like I know a lot of people who do not want to live below sea level in the Netherlands, or they are moving to the eastern part of the country to stay safe. I'm very happily living below the sea level, so I'm staying here. I'm quite confident that we can manage. But I think communication is important. In Bangladesh, on the other hand, there are so many issues, and flooding is one of the many issues. Yeah, I don't know if water flooding becomes that much a priority when you communicate more about it. But for a country as the Netherlands, it will work.
Okay. Just a side note to everyone, part of the idea of the Summanities was to first look at the environment around us and then move introspectively, generally, as we go throughout the year. We've had one on health, one on truth and false information. This one is on flooding. Next month is like the very exact opposite. We're going drought. And it's an interesting topic. It's the very opposite, but I do believe that they're very, very interconnected because of the fact that all of this is just climate change. So if you feel free to join the conversation again next month, or bring a person with you to enjoy the conversation. Now, this is your solution, Anne-Marie. Matthew, I guess, do you think that her solution would be practicable at the coast of Kenya?
I'm afraid I got some disruption because I was still at the office, and there was some disruption. I didn't really quite get her description of the solution, so I may give it a pass, kind of, since yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Arnold, Asarika, please share what you have been thinking about.
Okay, thank you very much. I saw you. Sorry for that. I saw your point, which was saying that is it possible to predict the flood? It is actually possible. We can predict the time for the next flood, when the next flood is going to occur. It could be a very good thing for our community. But the problem is that when you tell the people that the flood is occurring next year, and it is an illiterate community, like the way you know Africa, people will start calling you witch. That is the problem dealing with an illiterate community. But it's actually possible. You can predict the time for the next flood. Yeah. Then basically, there are some rivers whereby you can create a flood route where you are aware when it floods, this is where the water is possibly going to pass. You can create that flood route, and people, the risk can be reduced. Then I don't know. Politics is also a key issue in fighting this. If the government could allocate those people in the river valleys, could be something good. Basically, that's what I had.
Okay, I do understand very, very clearly the problem with the illiterate community, but for the most part, that is the illiterate older community, if I'm not wrong. Is it possible to reach out to the younger people who are less influenced by what the elders think, the rebellious kids, as I would say, about floods, because they are affected and they probably don't want their future to be in this flooded place, and they probably do believe the science. So it's possible to reach out in order to start a small change.
Yeah, that is possibly, that is okay. We can reach out to the young community, but in most cases, the young community that I've interacted with, you'll find out that they're living maybe in their homes with their parents. When you tell them about something, they have to get consent from their parents. And you know how African mothers behave. But it is a good thing. We can sensitize the community. Tell them that next year in May, the flood is coming for you. Better run when it is still early. But it is possible to sensitize the community. Actually, it is being done in some areas. Some people are responding, but it's really hard.
Okay, I have one more question.
Maybe
Yes, please.
Please, maybe hold the question.
Yeah,
I think with Kenya and Uganda just also sharing, I suppose, quite a bit of cultural diversity, and what even with in one of my proposed solutions, I'm looking at it from a point of, you can have the flooding or the warning, early warning systems, but people there, either they are cultured or they just want to be there because they also look at it as a form of receiving aid or something from that predicament. So that is how I'm looking at it, maybe from the Rivanzoya and quite a number of the people living downstream. So if there could be either government or partners, not only just maybe the young people, because they may not be the decision makers, we could try influence, but them influencing either their parents or the other decision makers within who are living in the areas or owning the land there. It may be hard to shift the parents. Fine, for them, they can live to higher ground, but either the parents or the decision makers and the people owning the land may not be quite motivated to go. So innovating around a motivation for them to move, because maybe the flooding or even may not be motivation enough for them to move to higher ground, or they could be having a separate motivation to stay back. So either trying to think either a root cause or trying to solve that and have them move to higher ground, even with the early warning systems and something like that. I think somehow it could help. So a motivation and resettlement plan for them to be there during, because the flooding normally happens at a particular time in the year. So in a particular couple of months, year in, year out, it's normally there for those. So that is my take on the thing.
Okay, I have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Is needed for most people. Honestly, for both sides, the government and the people, motivation is needed. What I know about Africans, monetary motivation is usually like the best thing ever. If you give them money, they will do. Now, is it possible? Now, the government is what we're looking with. Is it possible to give the government the incentive of the idea that floodplains are dangerous to live in? However, they are very, very good to take advantage of on the agricultural side. Is it possible to bring to the table those two ideas, in the sense that we tell the government, you could do this with the floodplains if the people weren't there, and you tell the people, we could do this. We could give you this money to move here, where you're not going to die in a few years or so because of floods, and the government uses that land to make something more valuable with it. Is that possible?
I think it's a workable idea. Because you see, like, let's say whether it's a really brilliant idea if you look at it, because like infrastructural projects, government normally even compensates people to move. A person may have built a flat somewhere, like the current infrastructural projects that are happening in Nairobi or in the cities. A person may have built a flat or whatever, and then they say a railway is being built here. You're compensated to move to elsewhere for that piece of land. So given a particular direction, those people could be, it could even maybe be a government directive or something. So people along a particular stretch, they are compensated to move elsewhere, and then the land can be used productively. But I think also our governments and how it is, they may not now use the land for that particular purpose, but maybe other partners could better manage the use of the land, even maybe agriculturally, as you put it.
Okay, now I've been keeping this question. Back to Arnold. We talked about creating river channels. Yes, creating river channels. How? Okay, I know it channels the water away, but okay. First of all, what would it take to start that kind of project in the flooding areas? Because I'm sure someone has thought of it before. So what has taken this long for it to start up?
The main reason why it has taken long is generally because of inability to get resources. Because starting it is quite easy, but the resources needed are very hard to get. First of all, you have to first get the government consent. The government has to be aware that you're going to do it. Then, secondly, the people in the community, you have to first talk to them, because you may be passing through someone's land. So it requires different parties to cooperate and come up with a solution. And even I think the highest challenge is that the government has not really taken efforts to solve that problem. The recent development I heard of was they developed some flood walls, but unfortunately they are also washed away. So I think they're going to restart afresh to come up with a permanent solution. So basically it is just inability to mobilize resources to take up such a task.
Okay. It gives us something to think about. Jen, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I have some few remarks to make. Actually, in my comments, I was talking about dams, and one of the main things, like the flood routes, which my friend Arnold was talking about, they could direct them to a dam. In that, most of these basins is where the industries are located, and industries need water. So they could construct a dam. They could like mobilize these industries because they know that they need water. They mobilize them to make a pool, like some money, some financial assistance to construct the dam. Then they will be using the water, and they will also be safeguarding the community from floods. And then there was another point on bridges. As I said, some bridges were not well designed and they broke down during the course of the floods because they didn't make all the considerations. So here I would think the government actually and other stakeholders, they would come up, then they design a new bridge which is flood proof, in that they will make it high, which cannot be reached by water, and water cannot flow over it. A case in point, last year in around actually 2019, towards the end, we had an incident, one of the best bridges in Uganda, which is Pakwach Bridge. It was having like 1 meter high of water due to the flood of River Nile. So I think if that case, if they are to redesign the bridge, it is expensive, yes, but it safeguards the community when it is put in place. Thank you.
Thank you too. Matthew, I'm going to miss you. And we are getting just to Wilfried. I'm going to hand over. So Wilfried, please explain your solutions and take us through the very last part of this Summanity.
Yeah, thanks, Esther. Yeah, I just note I'm not a water expert and I'm not a water engineer, so it's a pretty new topic for me. I put some ideas down that are more like economic or governance related. I think maybe if people can share ownership with properties higher grounds, or so that they can have temporary housing or move temporarily, maybe that can help. And Esther, about what you said, I'm not so sure I would trust every government so much that they handle it much better than the people somewhere. Sometimes they also build massive things that are not so helpful. So I have some questions around your suggestion. But I also thought, like, I wonder tunnels, whether like either with sea rise, I think to myself, can you have a channel for the sea in huge, large areas like the Sahara? Is that possible? Technically, and I understand socially, economically, it's very difficult, but could that be possible? And I wonder about tunnels. Could they be relevant, like the boring company, like just to create a water infrastructure that slightly uses newer technology or newer ways? Yeah, that's a question. But I'm not an expert, so I just think, have these things been tried? Are people looking at that? That's fairly new for me. If anyone have answers to these questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll move forward. One of the things that we hope to do is see, okay, so we're trying to build properties that can become useful and helpful for people towards the next 10 years to link to or connect to or collaborate with. And so we also have website domains like higher grounds, highgroundacquisitions.com or foresightproperties.com. And these are .com websites, but it's also a little bit with the idea to help people become aware, okay, if I'm thinking about buying my home or adjusting my home towards the future to get better equipped, what should I buy or invest in? And it's a little bit to raise that. And so we have this website, foresightproperties.com, and it can be used as a tool for that, raising awareness or helping people to think through their investments in where do I live, or do I also buy an alternative or complementary home, or can I adapt and adjust my home more? So I'm going to ask also to the group whether you would have any ideas to maybe improve that website or build something on top of it or connect it to other innovations you see or partners you know of that could be relevant for that. All suggestions are welcome there, because then we can take that also a little step further. And if you're working on particular things and you want us to highlight that in our network or give it more visibility, that's also something we can try to do. We're in this with a fairly marathon mindset, as in, yeah, we're building these things for the next 10 years. So but every contribution, every idea can be helpful. Can you, like, I'm also going to ask for, if you have suggestions, you can put them in the chat. If you want to talk about it, also fine. Yeah, I think we should share the links there. I suggest we focus on this link. So there's the idea of, if you're going to invest in a property that is either a new venture that does something interesting in tackling flood risks, or a new startup or a company that has an interesting technology, or if you're going to invest in a home that is more like, for example, floatable home or more suitable for flood risk or higher grounds, or are there any things you would buy or invest in or suggest others to invest in, or what could you build on top of a website like that that could be helpful for people? Are there any ideas around that? It's a slightly more abstract website than we typically show, but I wanted to try it with this one. What you currently see on the website is the current state, but it does not have to limit you, or it does not have to shape your suggestions. Anything can be built on top of that. If you're looking at the website now, it's a lot to take in, I think. And yeah, that might be a bit much.
So if I look at this website, to me, it might also be a bit fake, because there are all these references to other websites.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that they're interconnected, but if I want to look at something specific, then maybe I'm not that interested in all these other websites.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually might I think damage a bit of the value of this website. In the sense that it's the other websites are very out there on the page as well.
Yeah.
So that's just an idea that I'm feeling, the feeling that I'm getting from.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's very broad right now and fairly abstract. That's why, but I still wanted to, because we also have, for example, have highgroundacquisitions.com or more concrete websites that you could build things on. Yeah. Anyone else who has something to say, or you say, I have nothing to say, I'm not inspired, or there's another feedback or a suggestion? I know it's 18 minutes into this talk. maybe you're hungry again. No one else, anything to add? Otherwise, we can close the conversation. And anyone who has some, what I would say is, I feel I've learned quite a lot again on different perspectives of the problem, and some solutions were mentioned. What was a little bit different than other times, maybe less concrete solutions were mentioned. Either Anna Marie is noting something down. Bringing knowledge to the people. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like in the app we are developing, we have like very concrete things which we aid people with, so they can place service request or they can request a water quality test, and that makes people want to use the app. And then we add a knowledge domain, but to try to educate people more on water quality specifically, not on flooding. Flooding will be a part of it, but is not yet. But it's one of the biggest challenges we have. What would make people to actually take this knowledge in? How can you bring it to the people? They have so many things to do. So when they grab their smartphone to do something, they play games and they watch television. So why would they like press the button on learning? And so that is one of the struggles we have. So I really like the idea of bringing knowledge to the people so they can make informed decisions. Yeah, but the pilot website will be out in 2 months, I hope. So then I'll send it.
Yeah, would be great.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking on like concrete ideas. What we are working on is mainly test things out, try things out to improve things. So I'm working on an app. A colleague of mine is working on floating homes in the Philippines. But I can't say like this is the thing that you should invest on or this will work. Or I think floating homes is an excellent idea. But yeah, I'm not sure if I can really say like this is what.
But is there a website for the floating home, or can people find it somewhere?
Yes, there is. They're on Instagram for sure. Let me check. I follow them on Instagram mainly.
Okay, we have the floating homes. Yeah, I think we'll have a look at that. These are also things we can highlight. Or we have one volunteer architect working with us in the Philippines, and he's also working with community or talking to communities there who are facing this flood risk. So maybe that's a small connection we can make.
Isn't that maybe the same? Because there's also an architect involved. I don't have all the names in place, but is TU Delft involved or not?
No, he's also fairly young architect. Francis Zion.
Okay, no, that's a different person. Okay.
Yeah. No, but he can also maybe connect this. Okay, I'm looking at the time. There's 3 minutes left. Is there anyone who wants to share some last words? Was this useful for you? How could this be improved? Anything else you want to say to the group before we close for today? What we will do is just keep you informed about the next Summanities. Once in a quarter, we write a little newsletter where we keep people informed. And maybe here and there, we have gotten to know you much better, which is great. So we can connect you here and there to things where we think, hey, that would be great to connect you to. And you just let us know whether or if you want that. Who else wants to share something? Final.
Yeah, I think you will share like what the upcoming talks will be about, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that colleagues from TU Delft or IHE like to join. I have a lot of colleagues in Bangladesh. So I think they would really love to join. So how free is it to distribute?
It's very free because we're hoping to get a mix between experts and people who are interested, and like ideally a very broad mix. So it's very free. Summanity.com has the list of all the upcoming events, and people can also sign up for free. So it's great if you can spread the word a little bit. Yeah.
And thanks for the evening.
You too. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, it was great meeting you all.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, hope to see you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.